Weston Andrus, Regional President of PNC Bank, and it's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. For the past 2 years, PNC and the Charlotte Observer have partnered to offer forums that explore some of the most compelling and interesting issues facing our society today. In our times together, we have discussed and debated teacher pay, the quality of mental health services in Charlotte-Mecklenburg, and political gridlock. Tonight's topic is certain to generate lots of great debate, and we thank the Observer and editor Rick Timms for organizing this discussion. I also want to acknowledge and thank our panelists for being here tonight. And most importantly, while the topics have changed, the one constant remains you, the engaged citizen who cares about our future. Look around at how many of us want to be part of the conversation. PNC holds these forums in many communities throughout our footprint, and I'm happy to tell you that you have made these gatherings some of the most successful in the country. We thank you for your participation and look forward to continuing the conversation. So welcome, and please stay afterwards to enjoy the refreshments. Thank you, and I'll now turn it over to Rick Timms. Rick?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Weston, and I want to thank PNC Bank for demonstrating its investment in this community by involving itself in important programs like this. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, we call this series Solving It Together. And to solve any issue, we must first understand it. And that's why we are especially pleased to see all of you here tonight. We have an outstanding group of panelists. You have sent in some very good questions. And at the conclusion of this program, you'll have the chance to continue the discussion at a reception just outside these doors. Now, I ask that we would all silence our cell phones at this time. And for those of you who are following on Twitter, the hashtag for tonight is CLT Forum. That's CLT Forum. Next, is my honor to introduce our moderators for the evening, Scott Fowler and Delano Little. Scott is an award-winning sports columnist for the Charlotte Observer. He has worked for the Observer since 1994, and he has covered 5 Olympic Games, as well as numerous Super Bowls, Final Fours, and all 20 years of the Carolina Panthers. Scott has also authored 7 books, and the most recent titled 100 Things Panthers Fans Should Know and Do Before They Die. Delano Little is also an award-winning journalist whom you all well know as a sports reporter and anchor for WBTV in Charlotte. And he too has reported in Charlotte for more than 20 years. His honors include a regional Emmy for Best Sportscast. What's more, Delano was a college athlete in his own right. He was a wide receiver for 2-time national champion Georgia Southern University in 1986 and 1987. Please join me now in welcoming Scott Fowler and Delano Little.
How y'all doing? Fine. Good. I'm glad y'all could come out. Did you not get hit by a tornado while you're here? We appreciate you braving the weather and joining us tonight. This is going to be a lively discussion, and we've got a great panel, and we are not going to talk long here because we know you really want to hear from them. But I'm going to set the agenda for us just briefly, okay? So here we go. The money generated by college football and men's basketball is growing into the billions of dollars. Coaches at top schools are earning 7-figure salaries. TV networks offer multi-billion-dollar contracts to secure broadcast rights. As this money rolls in, there's increasingly more outcry from some for the players in those sports to share in the revenue. Right now, the best do earn scholarships, and they also might score better meal plans, academic tutors, physical trainers, but there's no paycheck involved. Now, in courtrooms across the country, resolution, and possibly revolution as well, is coming. Numerous lawsuits have been filed. Some football players at Northwestern University have attempted to unionize. And the Power 5 conferences, which are the 65 richest and biggest schools in the country, including all of those in the ACC and SEC, are trying to establish autonomy. Fearful of letting the courts decide their fate, they want to set the rules themselves.
All right, that's point. But we got counterpoint, right? And the counterpoint is, how much do you pay athletes? Do you pay across the board? Do you pay the quarterback for a football team more money than you pay the kicker, let's say? Other scholarship sports like the non-revenue wrestling, of course, and tennis and swimming teams could just basically all disappear from campuses, and the entire notion of protecting women's sports kind of may just all go away. So that's some of the questions on that side of it. I played at Georgia Southern. I feel that, and it's not very popular amongst some of my former teammates who sought me out on Facebook when I made this comment, that I don't necessarily think that you should be paid because you got a scholarship. And the scholarship gives you an opportunity to display your talents. It gives you a chance to basically work with your college or university and show your pride. And also, I thought, more importantly, one of my biggest things has been I'm at an advantage for some other students who have to pay loans and have to pay college loans for years when they get out. I didn't have to do that under full scholarship. So I am one who's on the other end of this as far as not necessarily paying college athletes. So it's a complicated topic, and any answer is going to be debated. People on both sides of this. Tonight is the Solving It Together Forum, and we hope to bring some clarity to the issue. So, Scott, let's do the panelists.
All right. We're going to do a very quick introduction because we want to get right to the discussion. But first of all, if you please join me in giving a warm welcome to ESPN basketball analyst and former Duke basketball standout Jay Bilas. To Jay's right, we are very pleased to be joined by Davidson College President Carol Quillen. Next to her, right off the plane from St. Louis, where he just celebrated the 15-year anniversary of winning the Super Bowl in 1999, former UNC Tar Heel Dre Bly.
And Dre would have never let somebody get behind him with 25 seconds to go in the first half. Right?
I would have grabbed him.
Seriously. All right, and next to Dre, we have ESPNU analyst and former New York Giant. Say hello to Jason Sehorn. Jason also played in a Super Bowl, by the way. And finally, Big South Conference Commissioner Kyle Calander. Please give him a warm welcome. Thanks to all of you for being here tonight. It's time to get down to business. Exploit it or not is our topic. Starting it off, Scott.
We're going to start with a very simple question. And in this one, and a lot of our questions tonight, not all 5 panelists obviously will answer. This one, though, I would like you all to answer if you would, because it kind of sets the stage for where we're going. So it's only a simple 4 words. Are college athletes exploited? Are college athletes exploited or not? We'll start with our provocateur for the night, Jay Bilas.
How come I'm the provocateur? If you go by the definition of the word exploited, then you'd have to say on a relative basis, yes, they are. That this is a multi-billion-dollar business where only one class of person is restricted from their fair market value, and that's the athlete. And in my judgment, now college athletes are not mistreated in any way. They're treated very well. But especially on a relative basis, when you look at this multi-billion-dollar business, when you are earning money off of a person while at the same time restricting that person from earning money, you are by definition exploiting them. So the answer would be yes, they're exploited.
All right, then let's just go right down the row if we can, and let's ask Carol next.
So I guess my answer would be the typical academic one of it depends. And from my perspective, if we, speaking of educational institutions, honor our educational mission and the integrity of that mission and recruit to our campuses athletes who wish to be students and who are students and who graduate and thrive while they're at our campuses and afterwards, then the vast majority of them, I would say, are not exploited.
Not exploited. And I believe at Davidson, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember talking with one of the athletes, almost a quarter of your students play a sport, I think, or it's a very high percentage compared to most, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we are a school of 2,000. We play Division I sports. A quarter of our students are Division I athletes, and it puts us and the graduation rate for athletes is higher. It's in the 90s than it is for a little bit higher than the rest of the student body. So I think when you look at a place like Davidson, it's a difficult question to answer. Now, I know that I'm the only representative of educational institutions up here, so I feel I'm trying to speak for institutions that play D3, D2, D1. But I do think that my job is to defend the educational integrity of my institution and to recruit to my campus unbelievably great athletes who wish to be students.
Carol, let me say one thing. You give her a round of applause. Carol, I know it's one thing you said, and I'm going to try to be as tough as possible up here. You did say the vast majority are not exploited. So you do believe at some point there are some that are exploited?
Let me put it this way. I think that if an institution accepts as students individuals whom it has no intention of educating and whom it ignores as students, that is the kind of exploitation that I care about. So it's on us, and it's actually totally within our power to recruit to our campuses great athletes who wish to be students, and once they're there, it is our absolute unconditional obligation to educate them.
So, Dre, you were a college athlete, an extremely successful one, went on to the pros, and you were telling me a little bit of your history. Maybe you want to share that with the audience a little bit. But let's ask the larger question. As a college athlete yourself, did you feel exploited? Did the system play you, or did you play the system?
I'm not going to say the system necessarily played me, but, as I was mentioning earlier to you, I was a college athlete, and, some of the things that some of these guys are dealing with today, with some of these guys coming from single-family homes, luckily, my mother and father, they were middle class family, and they were able to supply for me and get me what I needed. But you have some kids that come from single-family homes, and parents struggle to turn the lights on to feed them, even in high school. And then when they get to college, they don't even have enough money to be able to send these guys money in school. So these guys are struggling to put clothes on their back to feed themselves. And so I played with some of those guys. Some of these guys that might not necessarily qualify for a Pell Grant. I didn't qualify for a Pell Grant, but it was times when I was in school, I couldn't afford certain clothes. I wanted to look nice on the weekends, whenever we traveled, whenever we rode the bus to a game, I wanted to look nice, have a nice polo shirt, nice slacks. But it was sometimes I couldn't afford to go to Dillard's and purchase what I need to purchase. And so that's the thing that I deal with. That I'm seeing, I'm reading about now. I feel like if they allow players to get paid, I think they'll open up a can. But still, they need to find a system where guys can receive some benefits, because I think if they allow that to happen, you won't see so many guys getting in trouble. All these guys getting in trouble for different things that they're doing, and I think it's ridiculous. I think that'll hurt the game as well. They talking about if players get paid, that will hurt the game. I think by players not getting paid, I think it's going to tend to hurt players in the future. Guys possibly with professional, football goals or expectations after college, it's hurting these young players. And I just want to see these guys be able to meet their, accomplishments or fulfill their dream. But because of these kids not having a chance to, go eat at these nice restaurants where, the kid across the hall who parents make $100,000+, they have nice cars and they have nice clothes in their back, but yet because my mom make $15,000, $20,000, I can't go eat at this restaurant with my teammate. I don't think that's right.
Jason, where are you coming down on this?
Well, no, I don't think they're being exploited, and Jay probably knows the exact definition of Merriam-Webster's exploited, and I don't. But I just think it, and I'm not just saying, I haven't looked at it to see what it really is, other than in my term is, are you not getting something for what you're providing? And I think they're getting something. I got over on the system. I got a $100,000 education in 2 years. To your point, I'm not here to, attack that, but I was raised by a single mom who never made more than $25,000 in a year. I never went to nice restaurants. Before I got to college, I didn't go to nice restaurants when I was in college. All I know is when I graduated, I didn't have any bills. I was one of the fortunate ones, less than the 1% that made it to the next level and got paid for my services. I see both sides. I'm well aware of how much money is flowing in, but I also see, working for ESPN, we televise women's soccer. I see the stands, and there's nobody in the stands, yet all those women have a scholarship and an opportunity to play and travel and be a part of the system because of sports that generate money. And I'm just cautious and leery of a system that allows some of that money to be drawn to pay two sports, the two generating ones. Does it pull away from the others? As a father of 3 daughters, women's sports are the first to go if it weren't for Title IX. Fortunately, we have Title IX, so they're there. But when the money dries up, will it still be there? Or will they just take men's sports away? So I'm not sure how to solve the problem. Only I know that there is one, and I don't think just simply doling out money to athletes is the solution.
And give Jason an additional round of applause for coming on his oldest daughter's 11th birthday today, I believe. Nice of him. As for solving the problem, however, we have to solve it. This forum's called Solving It Together. So in the next 60 minutes, this whole problem must be solved.
I was going to say, I'm not sure we're going to solve this tonight. If we can, then we've really accomplished
that would be something. Kyle, where do you come down on this issue?
No, of course I don't think student athletes are exploited. There's a lot of money, especially the top levels of college athletics. There's no question about that. Those that are proponents for paying college athletes generally look at it as in a classic business sense. But I would suggest that college athletics really is not a classic business. It's within an educational context, and I think that's really important to remember. Student athletes do receive value for their attendance through the scholarship. NCAA sets aside $75 million in the Special Assistance Fund to benefit student athletes during the year, to help pay for clothing, to help pay for trips home, those kinds of things. There's all kinds of services that are provided to student athletes when they're attending college, whether it's physical training, psychological training, nutrition, medical benefits. I think it was Texas Athletics Director Steve Patterson that said their student athletes there receive value of $68,000 per year, which puts them in the top 50% of income earners in the country. That's a pretty good return. So they really do receive a lot of benefit, a lot of value. But I would also suggest there's a lot of invaluable benefits that they're receiving. How can you put a price on a degree that really serves you for the rest of your life? How do you put a price on the experiences that you have in college, the maturation process, the social process? So there's a lot of value there that I think people don't generally think about because they try to put dollars and cents to it, but it's much more than that for sure.
Well, I think from hearing everybody's opening comments, it's obvious that there needs to be some type of change, and I think everybody agrees on that. And the degree of change is where we're kind of weighing in here. So a lot of proposals are out there, and I want to hear each one of you kind of comment on what kind of changes you think might be made. And Kyle, since you went last, let's start with you first.
Well, and kind of getting to Dre's point they made earlier, there is the Pell Grant that's out there. It's available for those that are in need, which is over $5,000 per year. So you can tack that on to certainly a scholarship value. But I'm in favor of the movement to go to cost of attendance, to provide more benefits. I think we need to provide as many benefits as we can to student athletes for their experience and when they're in college. So currently a scholarship covers room and board, books, tuition, and fees. Going to cost of attendance would add an additional $4,000 to $8,000 on top of that to help pay for living expenses, to help pay for expenses to travel to and from home and those kinds of things. I think that's appropriate. Not everybody in the NCAA will be able to afford to do that. I represent institutions that are great in the opportunities they provide to their student athletes, but many of them will not be able to afford that. So that may put them at a competitive disadvantage. But I think the interest in the student athlete comes first.
My solution is what I would call a stipend. I think there's plenty of money to increase a stipend, which is just like a monthly check for off-campus related incidences, clothes, food, going out, having fun, being able to actually live a college life instead of, yes, You know, I go to college, my insurance is covered, I got food 7 days a week in a training table with, 85 other guys. You do want to venture out a little bit. The food, as good as it is, does get repetitive. There are other opportunities to go eat someplace else. I went out to school in Los Angeles. It would have been nice to experience some of them. I think a stipend you could do across the board, and that way you eliminate the pay for play. It's just one of the suggestions I thought about in this whole conversation and topic. But even then, I mean, how do you, like you mentioned, how do you make sure every school can give the same to every player across the board? And then once again, you can't just think about football and basketball. You have to think about every single sport, women's diving, men's water polo, field hockey, you name it. They all have to have the exact same thing. You can't just say, these are our breadwinners, we pay them different than everybody else. And even in that system, to me, is unfair to an extent when you've got a guy who's the starting, defensive end or quarterback, and he gets the same as a guy who's never going to see the field. So, I mean, there's just all kinds of, variables that you have to take into account.
I agree with Jason. And players, scholars getting stipends. Like I said, I was a kid that didn't get a Pell Grant, but yet, still I had to try to find a way, whether saving my money that I got if I wanted to go eat on Franklin Street in Chapel Hill. But I do believe all players, whether you're a soccer player, a basketball, softball, if you get a scholarship, I believe you deserve to get that stipend, because at the end of the day, if players get a stipend, I think that eliminates some of the issues that we've been dealing with. Like I said earlier, I don't believe that the players should be getting paid for signing autographs or rookie football freshman cards or whatever you want, football cards. But I feel like these guys need to get stipends, because if they get stipends, then you won't have some of these knuckleheads getting in trouble like they've been getting in trouble of late, and then that eliminate all those issues that we've been dealing with.
And Trey, do you go across the board with that as well, to even the volleyball players or whatever the case may be?
If you meet the qualifications of getting a scholarship, I believe anybody that gets that scholarship should get that stipend.
The NCAA says it is. So we're saying, hey, look, they get a really good deal already. They're paid already. And they say that. So if they're paid, then the inescapable conclusion is their pay is capped. And it's capped industry-wide across the board. So their pay is capped. But that's not sustainable as the money continues to go up, because it is a business, and it's a multi-billion-dollar business, and everyone operates in a free market context except the athlete. And I think we're going to continue to have these major problems, and we are not far away from players striking, because it's been discussed, and it's been discussed of late as we've gotten towards some bigger events. And it's just a matter of time before it happens. I think it'll happen in basketball first, because it's easier to do.
And to prevent what you guys are talking about, I mentioned about guys getting stipends. When I was in school, I couldn't work. That's one of the things with being a college football player or a college athlete. They don't allow you to work, and to get paid and stuff like that. And then you have some of these other kids that, they're allowed to get a job, their parents make tons of money, so they getting, like I said, they able to do some things for themselves. So, we can't work. So, you guys talking about getting paid and talking about salaries, and I'm not going to go that far to say college athletes should get salaries, but, we talked about like Pell Grants, some sort of grant. I think if they, establish some grants or create some grants for players, coming into college, then I think we'll eliminate some of the issues we've been having. Like I said, I didn't qualify for anything, so it was times where, I didn't, I had to go find some money to get a nice polo shirt for Friday's game. And so, but if you create a grant for some of these guys, I think when I was in school, a Pell Grant was probably worth like $2,500, $3,000. And today I think it's worth around $5,000. I'm not saying, like I said, again, it's not about $20,000, $30,000. I don't think a college student needs that much money, but I do believe they need a little bit of money. So if they can create some grants, I think that eliminates some of the issues that some of these guys are having, and then we won't have to worry about a strike or, guys getting in trouble as much as these guys been getting in trouble of late.
I just have a... Go ahead. I just have a problem. I mean, Jay's point is completely valid. You can do that easily. But now you bring agents into play to an 18-year-old kid. And he's negotiating a contract with a university on who's going to pay him more, Ohio State or Michigan. He's deciding between the two schools, and it's just basically a barter war. that's fine for the NFL. I don't think you bring that into an 18-year-old kid's living room. But that's just one point. The other point is, today we have issues, and he brought up the contract. Scholarships are one-year scholarships. Okay? You're good for 1 year. They can let you go at any time for a myriad of reasons, and they do to some kids. They put them on medical red shirts, they just let them go. A coaching staff comes in, and they just clean house. They don't talk about that much. The only thing I would say in this whole conversation is, in my standpoint, I don't even consider the NCAA relevant, so I don't think they have any really bearing on this. I'm more just keeping the kids, allowing them to go to school, get an education. Less than 1% are making it. I hate the fact that we're thinking about changing so many rules for the few that go out there and make a big name for themselves and sidestepping something that they signed. Like, we sign a contract that says we can't go sign or sell our autograph for money. I played minor league baseball for 3 years and went to SC, and I had to make sure that I couldn't sign a deal with Rawlings, I couldn't sign a deal with Nike, I couldn't sign any endorsement deals. I can get money and play minor league baseball in a different sport, but I couldn't play baseball at SC. I just couldn't sign any contracts. You saw with Jeremy Bloom a couple of years ago. He had contracts. He went to Colorado. He had to repay the contracts to, like, Oakley or somebody. These are just scenarios like, do we really want to get into this? Or can we just find a simpler way to spread the wealth to all athletes? I don't think there's a solution for that. I really don't. I don't think that with 30 sports that there's enough money to make everybody happy. I think there's plenty enough money to make football and basketball players happy. I don't think there's enough money to make everyone happy, and you're going to run into a problem there. You're an amateur for a reason. You're going there to get an education first. They're allowing you, here's how I see it, and I might be in the minority here, they are allowing you the opportunity to showcase your skills and talent. You don't have to take that opportunity. If you want, you can go get a job. Okay? Go someplace else. If you don't want to go to college and abide by the rules that are set, go do something else. The NCAA didn't say you couldn't go play in the NFL or basketball. Basketball did. The NFL did. They set those rules. These universities, Alabama didn't say you can't come out of high school and play in the NFL. The NFL did. So you have to go here. Otherwise, you can just sit around for 3 years and wait for your graduating. You have to be 3 years removed from your graduating class. There's just so many things that you bring into play that is sort of unnecessary in my mind. I guess I'm a little bit old school in that fact that just be an amateur, go to school, get your degree, make it a little bit easier for them, and let's move on. I would have a bigger problem if there was a Jerry Jones guy at my university getting rich. If I felt as though there was some president, stuffing money in his pockets and he's getting rich off all this. I know our coach, he's paid by boosters. Okay? They donate. Nick Saban, it's a state school. The state of Alabama cannot afford to pay Nick Saban $7 million. Okay? The boosters pay it. So you fundraise for it. The money's there. There's no doubt. To Jay's point, there's money. It's how do you divvy it up? How do you take this game that's fun and passionate to a professional level where you're getting paid and now you're getting cut, or now they're asking you to pay for your own. You open up a Pandora's box into, now it's the minor leagues. And where does it go from there? I just don't think it stops unless you just eliminate the pay. Just go play, get your degree, and if you're good enough, move on.
Can I make a point? So what Jason just said, and I'll be done. I think it's a contradiction, because why should you be allowed to play professional baseball and to receive money for that, but yet play college football? And then I wasn't good enough to get drafted and to play baseball. So on top of that, you have a job. So why should you be allowed to play professional baseball and get paid, and yet a regular college football player can't get paid or receive some extra benefits? Or why should a college football player struggle and you can't struggle?
Because I was talented enough, honestly.
But it's a contradiction.
Because I was no.
That's a contradiction, right? Of the system.
No, it's not.
It's a contradiction of the system.
Here's the rule. I can't work during school either. We can get a job in the summer, can't we?
But the point is, you're a professional, and you were just talking about amateurism, and you're a professional.
In a different sport.
It's still professional, Jason.
So the rule is,
still a professional.
You can play a sport amateur and be a professional someplace else.
But that was my point, is the NCAA defines amateur however they want. You're a professional athlete, but not in a subset of athletics. I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
I was making the point with baseball allows you to play professionally. See, this is where you run into the, as you said, a contradiction.
Yeah, that's a contradiction.
Baseball allows you to play baseball out of high school. NFL and NBA don't. So the NCAA doesn't care what you do, so long as you don't play professionally in your sport. So you can't be Freddie Adu and play soccer at 16 and then take a scholarship to North Carolina and play soccer.
Can I ask though, so part of my struggle around this is, my interest is the educational mission of the institution. So in some sense, that's what I care about. I want my athletes to be students.
Right.
And that is actually the primary question. Whether or not this definition of amateur, I agree, is difficult to fathom for a normal person. And so I feel a little bit like, where did the rules come from? And why are they the rules? And did they evolve to describe a situation that was prior to the one we have now? And if that's the case, what should the rules be? That's just I don't think anybody disagrees around total cost of attendance. I think there's consensus on the panel that total cost of attendance and perhaps, with some added stipend is fair.
It's a stopgap, because years ago nobody was saying let's give cost of attendance. Now all of a sudden people are saying, well, wait a minute, they're getting a fair deal and it's way better than other people get, therefore they should be happy with it, but we should do more.
But it's not.
Well, why should we do more if it's so great?
It's not better than other people get, because other people do get total cost of attendance.
And your point about students, that you care about the student, of course, that's great. But money and education are not mutually exclusive, and that's proven by the fact that you don't have any restriction on any student other than an athlete as to what they can earn. Whether they can be professional in their chosen field. You can be a professional artist, be an art major, be on an art scholarship, and you're celebrated for that. You can be a professional musician, be on a music scholarship. There's no problem with that.
I guess I would say the distinction between amateur and professional is perhaps not the most helpful one. And
exactly.
That there's a better way to think about it, maybe, because the distinction has gotten so complex that it's really hard to figure out what it is. So what's relevant about this, and what serves, how should it look? If that weren't the governing distinction, how would we think about it in such a way so that it was equitable, that we didn't do something with unintended consequences of some sort, and that everybody thought it was fair? And I guess that's my question to you guys is drop that distinction, since it's become so convoluted, and what would be the right way to, I think I know.
Well, the question I would have is, why does everybody have to think it's fair? Because, everybody doesn't think this is fair. And I can tell you where amateurism came from. It's a vestige, I know you know this, but it's a vestige from, Greece and Old England, where and also the Ivy Leagues, where a bunch of white men and handlebar mustaches put amateurism in so that the elites did not have to compete against the common man. They did not want to compete against the unwashed masses, so they put amateurism in so that the poor couldn't play.
So it's not the relevant
gentlemen
category.
played against gentlemen.
Right. It's not the relevant category. Amateur, I don't know what the relevant category is, but that version of amateur doesn't make too much sense anymore. So I just want to hear what is it that's important to you to protect?
Keeping boosters and agents out. If you could find a way, I'm not against, like I said earlier, I'm not against an athlete in any sport making money from the school in the form of a stipend. If it's performance-based, that's a bad idea. If it's for just a couple sports that make money, that will not fly. Title IX will crush that in a heartbeat.
How so?
Because if you don't pay the women exactly what you pay the men, it doesn't work.
Where does it say that in Title IX?
They would fight for it. Yeah,
they can fight it. Well, but see, Title IX,
you would lose.
You'll end up there.
That's not.
We all know that.
That's not true.
Well, let's be honest. Do you think we live in a society today where we could get away with paying a man and not a woman?
Nobody.
The U.S. Open tennis won't let that happen.
Nobody is saying pay a man and not a woman. But Title IX does not mandate amateurism, nor does it prohibit compensation. And so the idea that somehow we can't do this because of Title IX isn't so. And sort of the idea that, I think we have to look at the way business is conducted now. If this was conducted like Division II and Division III, I don't think anyone would be sitting here saying we need to pay athletes. If salaries were in line and all these contracts were in line with the stated mission, then I think everybody would be fine with it. This is not like amateur golf, where they don't charge admission and nobody makes any money. This thing is making an enormous amount of money. And when you have these coaches making all this money, and you've got 6 baseball coaches in the Southeastern Conference are making over $1 million a year. 6 baseball coaches in the SEC are making over $1 million a year. And then they want to say, we don't have enough money. We do have enough money.
All right.
Wait, one last thing.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jay. Go right ahead.
In what endeavor?
Counselor.
Let me ask this. In what endeavor do we pay everybody the same thing? I mean, we don't. We live in a society where fair market value is the measure. And we are in an endeavor in college athletics where we are saying across the board an athlete can receive no more than a scholarship while we use that athlete to make millions of dollars. And they're paying each other. Like what they're doing with that money is they are paying each other these exorbitant salaries and then claiming, but we're really doing it for you. And that's not right. If we didn't run this like pro sports, and it is pro sports in every way except the athletes go to school and that we have a restriction on what they can earn, it's pro in every way. And I have a problem with that. I don't think it's right.
This is good, isn't it? I mean, this is even better than I thought it was going to be. Y'all are, and I knew it was going to be good. So thank you. All right, we're going to start. We have several people who we have pre-selected to ask questions. After that, we are then going to open these mics. You see these two, 1 and 1. But first, we're going to have a couple of people who know already they're asking a question. The first one I'm going to bring to the mic is Bob Groseth. Bob was Northwestern University's swim coach for 20 years. He then held a leadership position in men's swimming following his retirement. He has now moved to Charlotte, where he is the assistant coach with David Marsh of the Team Elite at Swim Mac, which produces, well, last Olympics had 5 Olympic swimmers, so they are big time. Bob, are you in the audience somewhere? All right, here he is. And so, Bob, can y'all give him a warm welcome? He's going to have a question for you.
Thank you. I guess this is probably for Jay, based on what SEC Commissioner Mike Slive and Big Ten Commissioner Jim Delaney have both publicly stated that non-revenue sports would have to be dropped in order to pay revenue sports as well as an equal amount to women's athletes due to Title IX. Will non-revenue sports be dropped to finance paying athletes? And I know you said that we're paying all these coaches. There is a finite amount of money. They're not going to take money away from Nick Saban to finance the soccer team or the wrestling team. So where's the money going to come from?
So what you're saying is that if your decisions reflect your priorities, they don't care about anything but football and basketball. But I don't believe that to be true. I think if the sport is important to the university and the university community, the university pays for it. And nobody asks when they're paying a coach $8 million, what's going to happen to the swimming program? Nobody asks that. They pay it. And they find the money and they deal with it. And I'm not sure I accept the principle or the premise that there's a finite amount of money. Because right now, the Big Ten is paying out $22, $23 million per school annually. That's projected to be in the $40 million range in under 5 years. The money is skyrocketing. They just started a new college football playoff that is going to bring in billions of dollars. There's more and more money coming into the system all the time, yet they're constantly claiming poverty, that we don't have enough. You've got $115 million budgets for some of these athletic programs. They have enough money to have a wrestling program. And if they eliminate it, it's by choice.
Why are these commissioners saying that?
Because they don't want to do any of this. They're making all the money, and they want to keep it all. They don't want to do this. And what they're saying is, like Jim Delaney, who's a good friend and a fabulous administrator, said recently that if there's a movement toward paying college athletes, the Big Ten will go Division II. Really? Do you think the people in the shoe at Ohio State are going to be really happy about that Ohio State-Williams game? And my question would be, what's stopping you from doing it now? If that's the way you think college athletics should be, go ahead. See, like, what I'm saying is that every sacrifice is borne by the athlete. We don't have enough money. The athlete has to take the hit. Well, we can't. What about Title IX? The athlete has to take the hit. We're not, no coach is taking a discount for the wrestling program. It's the athlete. They're not worrying about gigantic facilities. It's the athlete. When they make more money, it's the athlete. athlete that's taking the hit. And I don't think that's right. I think each school needs to make a decision as to what they want to pay. Just like they make a decision, what are we going to pay? What are we willing to pay our coach? You know, Davidson is either not willing or not able to pay Bob McKillop $8 million a year. Duke has chosen that they are willing and able to do that. But Davidson's also decided we're not going to stay in the Southern Conference. We're going to go in the Atlantic 10. All right, that's a different kind of commitment. There are a lot of smart people there. They're making their decisions on their own. We don't need a cartel that's telling one class of person, this is what you get enough. There's no other person in our society we say you get enough. We let them bargain in the free market.
So, I mean,
Sure.
I think it's really important, from my perspective, to articulate why we have sports in educational institutions at all, right? And it's not, first and foremost, the argument can't be to bring us revenue. Like, that can't be the argument. So from my perspective, the argument is you learn things in sports by playing sports at the highest level of competition that complement what you learn in academics in the classroom. You learn resilience and self-discipline and teamwork and collaboration, and you learn how to get up when things are going badly. You learn a lot of things that serve our student athletes well after they leave. So I believe that about swimmers and cross-country runners and wrestlers and tennis players, just like I believe it about football players and basketball players. And so from my perspective, I want those kids on my campus because of what they bring to us and what the example that they set. But I'm a school of 2,000, and we don't play big-time football. And so, on the one hand, it's kind of easy for me to sit up here and say that, and it's easier for me to, I would say, live the values that I preach because it's not out there tempting me in some sense. I do want the amazing Bob McKillop and his amazing Davidson Wildcats to be able to beat Duke. So I don't.
The Duke hate in here is really bothersome.
I want them to be able to beat Carolina too. But I do think it's. So I want that chance. I don't want that ruled out from the get-go because the deck is so stacked against me that I can never get.
Why would it be ruled against? How would it be ruled against you anymore if players are paid than now?
So I think that's a very fair question. I think the fear is that recruiting at recruiting at the schools that are within the Big Five conferences, even schools that don't have as strong a program in a given sport, would be easier because of the money that they were able to pay their athletes. Now, that's not a reason not to do it. I'm just speaking institutionally. I want my coaches to have a fair shot at getting great student athletes for whom Davidson is a good fit, and I want those kids to have the opportunity to go to Davidson College. And so if it's a situation where we just can't compete, we can't pay $50,000, or we can't, then that would make me sad. But I'm not saying that that's a reason not to do it.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is that the way the system is currently structured, I've talked to a lot of economists on this, and they'll say that because the value for an athlete is a scholarship only across the board, that's what they're limited to, and they are limited to just that. The place where players are attracted is where they're going to get the best facilities and the best amenities.
Best education.
Well,
I mean,
but that's
seriously, the best education.
You're giving them too much credit.
No.
The best education.
They're going to play ball.
They're going for a purpose.
And look, I like to think I was a good student in high school. I went to school to play ball. And I was going to, okay. But I also looked at going to Iowa.
He's just lucky Duke's good at basketball.
I also looked at going to Iowa and Syracuse and USC and some other places, all different kinds of schools in this room. But the economic principle behind it is sound, that you would be more competitive if you had the chance to marshal resources and go after talent. Right now, you're only getting what falls to you, and I'm not sure that would change appreciably if the athletes are allowed to be paid.
Getting back to the question, I have a different answer, and I would suggest that yes, men's Olympic sports would be dropped. They're an endangered species as it is, and I really hate to say that because we love the broad-based opportunities that college athletics can provide. But we've got a spending problem in Division I, especially at the upper levels. I don't disagree with that at all. There is the money there to be able to fund these programs, but the fact is football and basketball fund everything else. And so the decisions are being made to support those programs, whatever it takes. And unfortunately, we're seeing men's Olympic sports being dropped. And I'm really concerned that if we do have additional expenses, and we do, what is going to go? What are the decisions, the difficult decisions that are going to be made? And I'm worried about the opportunities for the student athletes because of that.
Because they're not going to cut football.
No.
It brings all the money in. So as Jay was saying, you can choose to pull from wherever you want to pull to take the money and put it someplace, but it's never going to come from football. At the end of the day, they will allow that money to fund other teams, but not at its expense. So if it starts to weaken the mothership, they're not going to allow that to happen. And quite honestly, it's easier to fundraise for those two sports because everybody watches it. Everybody gets passionate about it. I'm not a swimmer, so I can't say that, but I don't know if it's easy to fundraise for swimming. You know, if you're out on the road and you're trying to fundraise for scholarships for swimming, I don't know how difficult that would be as opposed to, listen, we want to keep the stadium full to generate the revenue in football. Is it easier to fundraise? Heck yeah. In Alabama, they're paying Saban $7-8 million. That's not from the state of Alabama. That's from boosters.
And maybe some of these athletic departments could stand to shrink too. That they don't need to be bigger than the Pentagon.
Some have
most of these athletic departments have
3 ADs.
19 and 20 athletic directors. That's not necessary, and they're doing it because they've got the money to pay each other. They just don't have the money to pay the athletes.
Yeah, I never know who to call. I mean, there's so many of them.
We have one. Can I just say we have one athletic director?
Let's get to this question real quick before we open the mic for everybody in the audience. Kathy Bell, is she out there? Come on, Kathy. Kathy has an interesting question. We wanted to make sure she got this one in. I think Carol's going to be weighing in on this a lot, too. So, Kathy, go ahead with your question.
Sure. I kind of want to come at this from a different angle. I'm concerned about what I call educational credibility. Probably Davidson accepted. Division I programs identify and recruit athletes and not students. If we go to pay for play, why would there be a requirement for athletes to be students? They simply could be employees of the sponsor or the university, and this would eliminate the need for the no-show classes, the tutors writing papers, and inflated grades. So I'm interested in knowing if you agree or disagree. And does pay for play open the door for this?
My answer would be no, it doesn't. That your integrity is your integrity. That's not a concern with other students that make money. Whatever issues that are there from, admitting underqualified students are there anyway because of making money. So paying them isn't going to have any effect on that. In fact, I think the opposite is true, that if players are paid under contract and have those contract obligations, there's more of an incentive to do what you want them to do. You have a monetary incentive for them to do it. So I don't believe that it would change that for the poor. I think it'd be for the better.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of paying athletes. I don't know if I made that clear or not. But to Jay's point right there, that's a valid point. I mean, even I would have to admit that if you're paying somebody to go to school, the incentive for them to fail or to not fail is great, because they're getting a paycheck. Right now, there's not really an incentive. You know what I mean? They can leave, go to junior college, come back. I mean, there's summer school, you get kicked out, no big deal. I wasn't getting paid anyway. I wasn't playing anyway. Now, all of a sudden, if you're getting paid, there is an incentive to stay there. And I will say this, studies say right now without pay that athletes graduate at a better rate than the student body. That's hard to believe, but there's incentive for those kids to stay eligible to play. If you don't get your classes in, you don't get another semester to get it in. You're ineligible. You can't play. So there's a little bit of incentive, and that might be a little bit of a greater incentive.
I mean, I really do feel that as a college president, my role is to, above all else, speak for the intellectual and academic integrity of the institution, and that therefore it is on us now to seek out great athletes who want to be students. And then it's on us once they are on our campus, like it is with all of our students, to offer them the education that they deserve. And what's confusing about it is that we admit student athletes sometimes in a different way than we admit everybody else. And it's easy, again, I mean, Davidson is different. We're small and we're different. So we don't do that. But there are there are ways in which we've already kind of, I mean, I can't defend the integrity of the system now on a national scale. So I don't know what the effect of this would be. I worry about the nature of our community and of having students come in under such vastly different circumstances. But again, I'm a small place, and we can compensate for a lot of the inequities that our students bring with them to our campus in a way that bigger schools can't.
It's amazing, really, how this debate, everybody's so passionate about it. And when you talk about the admission of students, you know, if I go to State U, I'm looking across at my rival going, well, the exception that we took, the exception that we took and admitted, even though it didn't reach our standards, is a great kid that was underserved in his community and needed an opportunity, and we're going to give him an opportunity. The exception you took is a threat to the integrity of this enterprise. And that's the way we do it. It's so ridiculous. And, you know, there are so many of these students, like, we all have all these schools have different mission statements. They take different types of students. It's kind of crazy that we say, well, wait a minute, you know, Harvard is playing Memphis. And we want to draw conclusions about those two schools. And it's just a ball game. Like, the ball game starts at 7. Let's play. And then when you go home, you guys educate your students the way you see fit, and I'll educate mine the way I see fit.
So as long as you do that, I mean, that's my only, I think the true exploitation is in taking a kid under false pretenses, right? Here you are, you're here, we're going to offer you an education that's going to serve you well, whether you play professional sports or not, and that's on us to do that. My objection is not with the kid. My objection is with institutions, or my question, my call to my fellow presidents is, let's live up to that promise. Let's not take in kids under false pretenses. Any kid that we have no intention of educating.
Well, I agree with that. But who's doing that? Who do we believe is doing that?
The other guys. That's always the other guys.
What's that? Did we?
Hey, hold up, man.
I mean, I don't know.
Oh, hold up.
She said, did we see UNC doing that? That's what, for those in the back, that's what her question was, Kathy.
Isn't that the issue of...
Well, the issue but the issue what happened at NC.
I'd love to hear this.
That's Rashad McCants' issue. You know, and like I graduated in 4 years. I went, you know, like, I've been dealing with talks and people talking about the paper class and the tutors and this and that. We didn't experience anything different at our school than what these other universities experience. You know, North Carolina is a very a great school, and so he sort of put us out there and gave us a bad name just based on his experience. His experience wasn't my experience. And so I was responsible. I did what I needed to do. I redshirted my first year in school. And so you could have easily slacked off and fell behind the school, but I did what I needed to do, and I graduated in 4 years. I had another year left to come back to school, but I chose to go off to the NFL. But what I did, I was responsible. Now, if you're lazy, it's just meeting a random person at school. If you meet a guy or a girl at school, and if you if you're married and your husband take you out on his first date and trying to wine it down you and do all that stuff, that's what Rashad McCants did with that tutor. And that's basically, he was able to get her to do what he needed to get done, and that was his deal. But that wasn't what I did. And so he tainted or gave us a bad name just based on his experiences. But it wasn't like that for every athlete at North Carolina. And it's like that at any student that goes to school has that opportunity if you can talk. It's just like out here in the streets. You can get done what you need to get done. That's how it is. It wasn't like that for me.
I think the bottom line in a lot of this stuff is we can't have a one-size-fits-all standard for 350 Division I institutions. So they each have to make their own admissions decisions and then educate their students the way they see fit. What we're talking about here is sports. And so the game starts at 7. Let's play at 7. And if you want to give your kid a uniform that we think wouldn't get into our school, fine. You want to play, let's play. If we want to sit and compare the value of our degrees, we can do that later on. And there are accreditation services that determine whether these schools are in compliance and they're doing the right things. That is not for the NCAA to do, and that is certainly not for one school down the road to be telling another school how to do it.
I agree with that.
I think that's where we get into a huge problem. Is this becomes this kind of moralizing? Not that you're doing that. Please don't mistake me. But a lot of folks in this, we get into a lot of moralizing. Kind of the one and done thing. My one and done is a great kid who had a wonderful opportunity. Your one and done is a threat to the integrity of this. And that just doesn't get us anywhere. It doesn't do anything.
What I worry about is just the incentives, right? If we want to align incentives with goals, I want institutions, colleges and universities to have incentives to offer the education, whatever the kid decides to do, to offer the education to the kid, that's all. And sometimes it does feel like the incentives are really pushing people away from that and towards recruiting, not making the student experience even a part of the experience itself. I don't think anyone intends for that to happen, but there's so much money. You point out there's so much money.
There's money, and it's not just for the money, as you know better than I do. A lot of sports are used for institutional advancement as well. And I'll give you an example. Whether it was North Carolina, Southern Cal, Duke, all these schools use sports and their success in sports to increase their enrollment, get a better class of student that are for applications and all that, and to rise up in the U.S. News and World Report rankings. That's really what everybody wants. So a few years ago, 2010, 2011, Butler goes to the national championship game. And what was the narrative? The little engine that could. They know they have their values in the right place. Look at their coach. He gave up a job at Eli Lilly to go to little old Butler, and look what they're doing. They're doing it the right way. 2 years later, their coach is coaching the Celtics, and they're in the Atlantic 10. Now they're in the Big East. They like money, too. They like advancement of their institution, too. They went into the Atlantic 10 first and then the Big East to increase their enrollment and to become a more selective school. They didn't do it to give their players a chance to play against better competition. These things are being used, and as a result, the athlete is being used in that vehicle. And in my judgment, it's my view, that's not right. If we are going to pay everyone else fair market value, and we are not going to put any limitation on any other student, so we are admitting that there is no correlation between money and education because we don't put a limit on anyone else. We just put it on the athlete. I can't see how we can possibly justify that. Now, if we were doing this like Division II and Division III and everybody did it like you guys, then I'd say fine. Then that's a decent limitation. But this is not high school sports where we're having bake sales and charging $5 a ticket. This is professional sports in every way. Everything, you can't tell the difference between the BCS title game and the Super Bowl. You cannot tell. It is the exact same product. And it's the same product. The college game is run the same way the professional game is, especially on the revenue side. The revenues are shooting through the roof.
So you're me. What do you do? Or you're a commissioner, or you're like, what would be your, or pick a bigger school. What do you do as a president of an institution whose primary mission is education, or you're a commissioner of a conference that isn't one of those 5, or what do you do?
Stanford, maybe Stanford.
Well, Stanford's in a Power 5 conference. They're doing what everybody else is doing. And
pick Georgetown. Okay, Georgetown is not in a Power 5 conference.
Not anymore. But if they
don't play football.
I think the big problem that we have is that we are not getting ahead of all that is coming at us. That we are talking about what it was supposed to be back in the day instead of what it is. And this didn't become a multi-billion-dollar business overnight. There are a lot of decisions were made to do this, and they were knowing decisions. And right now, there is a train coming down the track of college sports, and it is coming through the court system. And this is going to change. I think if the NCAA would be wise, and they have not shown that they are capable of wisdom, but they would be wise to get in front of this. And when I say NCAA, I'm not talking about Mark Emmert and all the people that work in the Indianapolis office. I'm talking about all the member institutions and the presidents who claim to be in charge. And I can tell you, I think there is a very big difference between being in charge and being a leader, and there's been very little leadership shown on the part of the presidents. But if we are going to run these businesses this way, they have got to get in front of this, and it is not going to be enough to just say, okay, well, we'll have a little stipend, and then everything will be fine. And then if Johnny Manziel sells his autograph, we'll have him out for a half. But when Todd Gurley does it, or when Jameis Winston does it, now that's a different deal. We got a problem with this, and we've got to fix it. And nobody is, in my judgment, thinking forward on how to get ahead of it. We've been 10 steps behind this for a long time now.
Speaking,
I won't quick.
Go ahead, Jason, and then we'll do.
See, I'm not for paying the athlete because nobody's come up with a really good plan to do it without boosters involved. You keep talking about the student athlete and getting the students in the position they need to be to succeed. Well, that's out the door if it's just money, money, money. Now you've got people just clamoring to get kids into school, and they don't care about anything else other than just getting the best athlete to come to the best school for the right amount of price. If there was a system, and that's why we kind of talked about the stipend, if there was a system in place that did that, I would be open to listen. But right now, there's no system. And, to Jay's point, these smart individuals who are running these universities are turning a deaf ear to it and just like, I don't want to really talk about it right now until they have to. Eventually they may have to. He's right. I'm just saying there's nothing on the table that works today. And I don't think we're going to solve that issue in the next year or so. But it's a problem because I like it the way it is without the influence of somebody's money convincing a kid, where to go. And I think right now you have some of that left. And I think you lose all that with just money.
You hit it right. I mean, that hit it right on the head. I like it the way it is. And really, that's what a lot of this boils down to, is most fans, most people that follow college sports don't want us to mess with it because they like it the way it is. And kind of like I said about 30 years ago, they would have said, no way, I would never follow that if you're going to pay somebody $7-8 million a year. And the example I give is 2 years ago, in the NFL, the officials went on, were locked out.
Yeah, 2012. Yes.
So 2012, the officials were locked out, and it dragged into the season. And I'm a football fan. I'm watching it going, I'm tired of this. Like, let's get this thing settled so we can get back to football. When they finally settled it, I didn't care whether the officials got what they wanted or whether it was fair, whether they got the benefits they wanted. It was fixed, and I got to watch football. And I think that's kind of what most fans are looking at. They're like, no, don't mess with this. No conference realignment. It messes with my rivalries. Don't pay the players. It messes with the product I get. I want the delivery of this when I want it. Enough. You guys get enough. I'm tired of hearing about this stuff. That's fine. But that's not the, and I'm the same way when I look at sports I'm a fan too. But when we start talking about the policy of this, nobody would accept this if it was you. If in your business somebody said, if you're if in our business somebody said, look, all you broadcasters, we're going to pay you one salary and that's it. All the companies got together, the media companies got together and said, look, we're not going to pay any more than this. We'd march into federal court and we'd sue them for an antitrust violation. We'd win. And the NCAA has been sued for that on the coaching side, and they lost $50 million. And it's only a matter of time before somebody, and I think it's going to be Jeffrey Kessler, drives a truck through that because they've already been ruled to have violated antitrust law on the players in the O'Bannon case. It is not that much of a leap to get it on the scholarship side, and then we're going to have to do this in a hurry, and it's not going to be easy.
I disagree that nothing's being done, though. There are things that are being done. It's not to pay players. It's not the extent that, Jay, I think you'd like to go. But when you talk about the whole autonomy movement, you talk about cost of attendance, you talk about the benefits to student athletes that have been widened and expanded for them over the course of the last couple of years, there has been a lot more that's being done for the student athlete, and a lot more thinking going into what can we do to help this issue. So I would not suggest that nothing is being done.
Well, speaking of the train coming down the tracks, there's a lot of that coming. We want to get y'all out at a reasonable hour, so we're going to throw it open at this point to open mic. Jonathan, if you're around, you may go ahead and ask your question. But if anyone else has a question for our panelists, we have 2 microphones right here. If Jonathan Norman is here, he can go ahead and ask his. There we go. And then, other than that, if you want to come back, come behind, or take a question over here, we'll try to limit the questions and the answers to some brevity so we can get through a few of these. And then remember, hopefully most of our panelists will be available along with all the free food in just a little while.
Thanks, Scott. So a lot of the talk tonight is coming along the revenue generation. So my question for the panel is, what role should media partners and sponsors play in helping to bridge the gap for certain schools that find issues with the pay-to-play scenario?
Personally, I don't think that's their responsibility. Their responsibility is to buy content to put on their air. It's up to the universities, the conferences, and those decision makers to come up with their own set of rules. That's why you now have the SEC network, the Longhorn network, the Pac-12 network, the Big Ten network. They've got to decide that that's their conference. Do not allow ESPN to control your conference. I work for them. It's a fun company and all, but if you allow them to control everything, as it is, they have every game on television. You can't allow them to also control the conference.
But they control the NBA.
No, we don't.
No.
Absolutely. So you're saying the new NBA new NBA TV deal is going to result in sponsors being on uniform on NBA players.
That's up to the NBA.
Against the NBA's will? They're selling that. See, this is how television works. We go the rights holders right now saying, look, we can't afford to give 3 meals a day, so we're only going to give 1, and we're gonna all vote so that you can only give 1 too. So because our players are malnourished, your players have to be malnourished too. That's kind of the mentality that there's been over the years. And so this autonomy thing, while the rhetoric is, look what we're doing for the student athlete, it's really the big school saying, this is our money, you are not going to tell us what to do with our money anymore. We're going to do with our money what we want.
And they did a kind of revenue share with other FBS schools. I mean, they did. There was whatever you want to call it, there was a revenue distribution not to, I mean, from my perspective, I worry about the basketball conferences, but that's my interest, so I worry about the Big East, I worry about the A-10, these schools that routinely send a lot of teams to the NCAA basketball tournament, and wanting to make sure that we have the opportunity to compete at that level with our student athletes.
Conferences do revenue share within the conference. So if you look at it with Mike's Live saying he's retiring next year, we ran a statistic on TV today. His first year there, they distributed $4 million amongst, I think it was 12 teams. This year, it's $301 million amongst 14 teams. And that's every single dollar generated by the conference in every sport, through every bowl, TV, you name it. But that's what got dispersed between those 14 schools. The NFL model works perfectly because a small market team can win. Same way with, the SEC. Mississippi State and Starksville can compete with Florida, Alabama, and these schools can all compete with each other because they have resources. The thing you're never going to rein in, alumni. I mean, alumni give what they want. You tell T. Boone Pickens at Oklahoma State he can't give $100 million.
Is Mr. Pinckney in the audience too? I would like to hear his question. He's got a very interesting one. Go ahead, Mr. Pinckney's right here. Do you mind asking yours, and then we'll throw it open to whoever would like to go next.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, guys. And to get away from economics, my interest personally is with rebuilding the broken urban families in our communities who are harvest fields for these Division I schools, athletes. And given the current economic distress among these families, particularly the black families, is it not fair to say that the NCAA has a moral obligation to compensate young male athletes? And if you say there is no moral imperative, what would be your rationale for that?
Coming from a single mother-raised family, most of the people Dre was talking about earlier, it was nobody else's responsibility to raise me other than my mom. I don't look at it as it's somebody else's responsibility to take care of the mistake my mom made in picking a husband. That was her choice. It affected all of us, but that's not USC's fault, and that's not anybody else's fault. That's a society problem that individually, people, I don't know if it's a community, if it's a church, where you get it, but you can't expect a university to come into a neighborhood and start telling people how to live their lives and saying you need to stay married or you need to get married or that's not their issue. I think what we're doing, and I hope what we're doing, is we're giving kids opportunities that they otherwise wouldn't have in those families. I'm stereotyping here, but I found that most of the kids that I played with were underprivileged. And I am stereotyping again and saying that's because a wealthy kid won't work as hard as it takes to be a professional athlete. I'm completely generalizing here. I don't speak for all of them. I'm just saying it's funny how it worked out that way, that I can look in the locker room in college and the pros, and not many people came from money.
I mean, to answer your question, I don't know the answer to your question exactly. I do think that it's our moral obligation to educate the students that we take in and to make sure that if we're bringing them in as student athletes, they're able to compete and go to school in a way that is dignified and that meets their real needs. And I don't have a knee-jerk reaction against paying people. I think the professional amateur distinction is probably not the most helpful one in this regard. I do think it's wrong. It's morally bankrupt for institutions to accept individuals for the sole purpose of exploiting them until they get hurt, and then not allowing them to go to school anymore. One way to think about your question is maybe we make a 4-year commitment to our student athletes, irrespective of whether or not they play. And maybe I say, look, I want you at my school. Your scholarship is good for 4 years. And no matter what happens to you as an athlete, I'm going to live up to that commitment that I'm making to you now. I mean, that to me, is not crazy. I think that
There are so many great people that work in college athletics, and their intentions are very good. So I want to be careful when I say this. When you are running a multi-billion-dollar business and you pay coaches millions upon millions of dollars, as we're doing now, and you say that it's about education, you've lost the moral high ground. I believe that when you take one segment of that multi-billion-dollar business, and only one segment, and you limit them, because now part of me agrees with Jason that what a wonderful opportunity. Like I feel like it was great. I loved playing. But the truth of the matter was they recruited me and limited me to a scholarship, because my value and all of our values as players was much more. If they could have paid us more and it was a market system, they would have paid us more. They would have. They'd have to compete to get the talent to play. And so when you're limiting, when everybody's making fair market value to the tune of millions of dollars, and they are limiting just one segment, I happen to think it's wrong to the point of being immoral. And I don't say that lightly, because I do not feel that anyone's intentions in college sports are bad. I really don't. I just think we have had this system in place, this antiquated system, for so long, and yet we've run this multi-billion-dollar, but we've turned it into a multi-billion-dollar business and kept this antiquated vestige that the rich guys aren't going to play against the common man, and it's the athlete that takes the hit and makes every single sacrifice. We're worried about Title IX. Well, the athlete can't be paid then. Well, what about wrestling? The athlete can't be paid then. Well, what about this? The athlete can't be paid then. Nobody ever asks that question when we build new facilities. Nick Saban signs a new contract. What about where are the articles? What about wrestling? Nobody says that. It's only when we talk about giving the athlete more that we say, wait a minute now, we've got to keep our thumb on them. We can't let them out of the pen. And I think that's wrong.
Let's take this question from the audience right here.
Good evening. I think this has been a wonderful, wonderful panel. My name is Patrick Diamond. I had the privilege of playing college football almost 50 years ago at Boston University. In fact, the university doesn't currently offer football, but 50 years ago we did. I think that it's a very bad decision to pay athletes any type of compensation. But to build on Carol's comment, I think a commitment to the 4 years, and particularly the big schools that offer graduate programs. I think the 4 years plus graduate opportunities, terminal degrees, I think would be the kind of incentive that would make all the sense in the world over against the crumbs of a $2,000 a year stipend or $5,000 stipend. Again, I just think that focusing on the kids, on the students' education long term makes much more sense than short-term compensation.
I think that's a great comment. And currently under NCAA rules, you can do that. You can offer multi-year scholarships. You can offer a 4-year scholarship. You can pay for them to come back to school and earn their degree. So that is currently permissible. And you're seeing colleges now make the commitment to do just that and guarantee those opportunities. It's a wonderful opportunity for student athletes to be able to have that and have that chance to compete and to earn the degree. It's really important.
Let's take this young lady's question right over here.
I know Jay's been comparing college athletics to professional in a professional sense, but it only seems to be the case in football and men's basketball, because in baseball, hockey, any other sport, you can leave for the professional leagues whenever you want. So when and why did athletics become the #1 priority in just those two sports as opposed to education?
It's simple. They make the most money. That's all it is. It generates the money for everything else to exist.
Is it right, though?
It is what it is. I don't think we're here to debate whether it's right. You're not changing that. It's what the public wants. It's the reason the NFL is I think it's a $9 billion a year business, is because the public wants to watch football on Sunday. College athletics are fun, and it's a great opportunity for a lot of people, but the two driving forces are what people want to watch on TV, and more importantly, what they're willing to pay to watch on TV, and that's how it got there. We were bringing it up earlier, would we start it this way if we could do it all over again? I don't know if you can change it, because it's what we want to see. What Jay said it best. It's like, hey, we'll pay you this much for a 9 o'clock game, but only this much for a 7 o'clock game. Well, then we're playing at 9. I mean, that's what it is. It's driven by what the viewer is willing to pay for and watch. So I think that's how we got to where we are today, with those two sports generating all the revenue.
And what players do we see get in trouble? You don't read about swimmers or track athletes.
Yes, we do.
Well, he wasn't in college.
They do all the right things. What you read about today, you hear about the football players, the basketball players. These guys are getting in trouble. So that's, when we talk about football and basketball, that's the reason why they generate so much money and everything. And you talked about it today, a few minutes ago, about there hasn't been a plan to pay these players, so you don't think we should change. Well, if they don't change, it's going to be more players that get in trouble. It's going to kill the game. I think it's going to hurt players. It's going to hurt the game. So they have to find a way to fix it, because if not, I think you're going to see more and more players get in trouble, guys go to jail. And I don't want to see these young athletes, these young guys with dreams, throw it all away for something dumb, stealing crab legs, walking out of the store with some crab legs. Right. That's dumb. That's stupid.
Well, Dre,
I-0 get two free, I think that was called.
Yeah. Dre, let me just say this. So you think about paying the money to the athletes. Does that necessarily take away now you give them money and they're not going to get in trouble anymore?
No.
May just...
But guys will get in trouble with or without. What I'm saying is, we talked about, education. And I'm not just saying just give these guys a stipend and you don't have to handle your business in the classroom. Just like me, I had to meet the qualifications to be on the field. I had to have a certain GPA, had to go to class. I had Mac Brown recruited me, so he was on top of our academics down in Chapel Hill. So my tutor, he made sure that we went went to classes, made sure that I got up or did the things I need to do. So all I'm saying, if guys, just like my kids at home, if they do their chores or if they handle their business in school, if they're handling their work on time, I compensate them. I take him out and buy him what he needs or what he wants. If the kids in school are responsible and do what they need to do, why not give them, everybody should deserve like a Pell Grant. That's all. I'm not saying $10,000, $15,000, but I didn't get nothing. And the guy beside me got, $2,500 a month or a semester to be able to do some of the things he wanted to do that can help with some of the things he needed. And I didn't have that.
Yeah, I think the part of our challenge is that nobody anticipated this exactly happening as it did, and so we have an organization and a bunch of institutions that are set up to play and to regulate 30 sports, 2 of which now make obscene amounts of money. And so we're not set up to deal with that with the system that we have. And so my question is really, okay, what do we do? Here we are. Like, what do we do? And I think part of the reason why, this is so challenging is that if we change anything, we don't know exactly what will happen. But I don't think anybody on this panel would say that, wow, if we could set up a system that would make all of this work well, we would set up the one we now have. Because the one we now have is antiquated at the very least, and doesn't speak to this very interesting situation where we have billion-dollar industry embedded within an educational institution in 2 sports when we offer 30. It used to be a long time ago, sports were the way to go to college, and what you got was the college education, and you played the sport because you wanted the college education. That is so not true. For some folks now. It's still true in 28 of the 30 sports. And so here we are. So what do we do? And I have no answers, but I think it's important to acknowledge the complexity of the situation.
I'm often asked, okay, smart guy, where's the plan that pays everybody equally and everybody's happy with it? And I try not to be flippant, but my response is it's right next to the plan that pays everybody else. There is no plan that pays everybody else. Everybody does, every school. You got hundreds upon, some of these schools have thousands of employees, and they're not throwing up their hands going, we can't figure it out. What are we going to pay everybody? They know how to do it, and they're intentionally choosing not to.
My answer is probably 180 degrees from what Jay would suggest, and is not popular with my colleagues. But I would suggest that we need government intervention, which is not popular. The camel's nose.
What he's asking for is a...
Hear me out. Camel's nose under the tent, I know. But getting back to the issue, we do have a spending problem. We need an antitrust waiver in order to be able to allow us to control our spending. We can't do it otherwise. Jay referenced the restricted earnings coach lawsuit. $56 million later, we learned that. We can't do that in the market we're currently in. We have institutions across the country that are really struggling financially. Why can't we take this media money that's coming in, have that money go to the institution, and have the institution make the decision where that money is going to go, how much goes to the athletics department, to help control what our spending is and what we're trying to do, and then decide what we need to do to benefit the student athletes. To me, that makes some sense. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but that's the only way we control the spending the spending problem that we're currently in.
Y'all got to...
Substituting the government for the NCAA doesn't seem like
No. And the frustrating thing I have with this, is when I hear that, the spending problem, we all have balances, a checkbook to balance. We don't have a spending problem. We spend what we have. If you spend over what you have, you go broke. And that's your own fault. That's nobody else's fault. We don't need anybody else to fix it. The school needs to fix that. Stop spending what you don't have. Jay brought up a good point earlier, and I think it's the problem, it's the root of the problem, is that he keeps talking about this 30 years ago, what we have done. Well, there's one side of the ball that has stayed the same, and there's one side of the ball that has learned how to make money. one side of the ball, the athletes, okay, that the business has gone on as usual. Yes, the training tables and the facilities are nicer. The game is fun to watch. The stadiums are more, accessible and with more amenities. But they've gotten smarter on how to make more money. And all he's saying is try to find a way to give some of that to the players. Listen, if you can come up with a great plan, fine. It has to be solely based on the university, though. You can't bring. I'm just not a fan of bringing alumni in to start convincing kids and swaying them where to go. And now you're paying, college athletes to play football instead of, giving them a scholarship to get an education. I don't think that's right, but it is a problem. They've done a much better job of figuring out how to make money at this than they have at, giving it to athletes, which, right or wrong, I don't know. I don't think you should.
Follow up to Carol's point, how do you bridge the mindset then between the 28 sports or 28 athletes, sports of athletes that play because they love the sport, and then the two sports football and men's basketball, who are playing because they could potentially get a lot of money from it?
But that assumes that athletes who are playing revenue-producing sports don't love it.
Oh, not all do, I'm sure.
And the idea that if you're paid, somehow you're not going to love what you do. I don't buy that for 1 second. To me, that's kind of a flawed premise. We're kind of looking at these athletes saying, all right, you're driving the engine, we deserve the money, and we being the other sports. And my thing is, look, let all these institutions make their decisions for themselves. They can decide, like, how many sports is the right amount for a school to have, varsity sports?
It's up to each school.
What's that?
It's up to each school.
It's up to each school. Because right now, you know what the Southeastern Conference has? 18. All right, so by some of the logic you hear in college sports, the SEC is systematically denying opportunities to athletes.
It's happening now.
No, they're not. They're deciding on their own what they want in that conference. It's fine. It works. It's great. And I don't understand kind of the problem here. Like I said before, these are great discussions for each campus to have on their own. What are we willing to do? What do we want this to be about for us? Not what are we going to band together to impose on only one class of person, that being the athlete, because that's what they're doing. They're not telling each other, well, here's what you can pay your athletic directors, and here's what you can pay your coaches, and here's what we're all going to decide we're going to pay on facilities, and that's going to be our cap. They're saying the only one that's capped is the athlete. And in a multi-billion-dollar business, I don't think that's right. I think that's a hard one to justify, other than, well, wait a minute, I think it should be different. Well, if you think it should be different, then do it that way at your school. And then I'll do it my way at my school. And then you do it your way at your school. And then we'll see on Saturday, and we'll play.
So it's not the NCAA's issue, it's each school's issue.
Well, that is an NCAA issue, because all these schools band together under the umbrella of the NCAA, and they pass these rules to limit what they can give to athletes. Those are what they're doing. That's why I say it's a cartel. And if, like Kyle said, they did this with restricted earnings coaches, and they got hammered in court for it. It's a violation of antitrust law. I think the courts have given the NCAA deference over the years. That deference is slowly eroding. I think it's actually starting to quickly erode. And I think we're going to see, I think it would be folly to think that the NCAA is going to lose every issue, but they're not going to win every issue, and it's going to change.
Yep. This has been a great discussion. We can continue some of it in the lobby, but I know some of y'all need to go places. Can we give our panelists one more round of applause? I'm sorry we didn't get to everyone's questions, but the questions we had were great. I really appreciate the audience's intelligence questions. And before we let you go to continue the conversation in the atrium, where there is wine, cheese, and dessert, I want to thank my partner here for the evening. Please tell Delano Little along with me, thank you very much. Thanks, Delano. And we want to thank PNC Bank and the Charlotte Observer for hosting this Solving It Together forum. Please stay tuned for the upcoming program.